In 1998, news went out online and in the press that White Zombie, one of the most successful metal acts of the decade, were done. But with little time to mourn the announcement, fans were quickly greeted with frontman Rob Zombie's first solo recording, Hellbilly Deluxe, a horror-fueled industrial metal masterpiece that commercially eclipsed everything White Zombie did. Born Robert Bartley Cummings in Haverhill, Massachusetts, Rob's journey from art school misfit to metal icon happened on the gritty streets of 1980s New York. His first day in the city, he witnessed a murder. Talk about a warm welcome. From founding White Zombie with his then-girlfriend Shawnee Salt in 1985 to becoming MTV darlings of the 90s, Zombie's vision was always larger than life. Hellbilly Deluxe truly unleashed his singular creative madness, resulting in classics like Dragula and Living Dead Girl. This is the story of how an art school dropout became the undisputed king of horror metal. Rob grew up in Haverhill, Massachusetts, a once prominent shoe industry town in the early 1900s. He remarked to Rolling Stone, there wasn't a movie theater or a record store in town. The number one thing was cemeteries. As a little kid, you'd play baseball or football there. Older kids would carve Black Sabbath into the gravestones and light things on fire. When we finally got a McDonald's, I was like, let's have a parade. Without much to do and not having many friends, Rob and his brother Mike spent many hours in front of the television, literally watching whatever was on. His brother Mike later went on to front Powerman 5000. From a young age, Rob drew inspiration from things like the circus, the Munsters, 1930s era films, Russ Meyer and Herschel Gordon Lewis movies from the 60s, in addition to comic books that were filled with vampires, werewolves, and monsters. Rob revealed how these things influenced his music, recalling, "The music has the same sensitivity. It's spooky and creepy and weird." He added to Rolling Stone, "I guess I never lost my fascination for anything that I immediately liked as a kid. I'll never forget the first time I went to Disneyland. I thought, oh my god, I have to make my life like this. I always told my parents that I'd never work." Rob's journey to solo stardom began when he moved to New York in the early 80s to study at the Parsons School of Design. It was at the Parsons School of Design he met fellow student Shawnee Salt, who he became later romantically involved with. But Rob's laissez-faire attitude towards school didn't seem to mix well with his teachers or the student advisors, as he soon dropped out after a few semesters of bad grades. Rob turned to working a series of odd jobs, including being a bike messenger, a production assistant on Pee-wee's Playhouse, and he even worked as the art director for some porn magazines. During Rob's early days in New York, he went to the club CBGB and saw countless post-hardcore bands. But he wasn't impressed, telling Rolling Stone, "After going to shows for a couple of years, I couldn't believe how god-awful every band was. It just became obvious to me that any idiot could do this." So in response, he formed his own band with Salt called White Zombie, taking their name after the classic 1932 Bela Lugosi horror film. Starting out as an avant-garde noise rock outfit, they played alongside groups like Sonic Youth at CBGB. However, their sound soon evolved to be more horror-tinged heavy metal. By 1990, they nabbed a deal with Geffen Records, releasing their major label debut, Les Exorcisto Devil Music Volume 1, in 1992. The single Thunder Kiss 65 became a massive hit for the group, thanks to, believe it or not, the MTV show Beavis and Butthead. The album's sales skyrocketed after being featured on the program.
This band is cool.
The song peaked at number 26 on the mainstream rock tracks chart, while the group had another modest hit with Black Sunshine, which peaked at number 39. White Zombie returned 3 years later, releasing their sonic farewell in 1995's Astro Creep 2000. It cemented the band as one of the most popular metal acts of the decade, going double platinum, a feat that was almost unheard of given metal's drop in popularity. The single More Human Than Human became their biggest hit to date, peaking at number 10 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. The band spent the next 2 years touring, playing their final show in late August of 1996. Rob remarked in the band's 2016 box set book, It Came From New York City, "When that tour ended, I knew it was the end." there was nothing left. I remember walking off stage, handing our road manager my microphone and saying, well, that's the end of that. It had degenerated to the point where it was miserable. The band issued a joint statement almost 2 years later on September 23rd, 1998, that read, after 13 years, White Zombie has accomplished everything we set out to do, and we felt it was time to move on. Rob was a little more open, telling Rolling Stone in 1999, we hit a wall. I don't want to have ideas for things that can't be done just because other people aren't into it, and I didn't want to make records for money, which is what it would have turned into. Between White Zombie's last tour and their breakup, Rob recorded music for Howard Stern's movie Private Parts with the song The Great American Nightmare that ended up being the Shock Jocks' opening song for his radio shows. He also worked with creator Mike Judge on the film Beavis and Butthead, creating and designing the hallucination sequence in the film. In a subsequent interview, Rob remarked about this time in his career, recalling how he looked at himself like Ron Howard, revealing, I left Andy Griffith and moved on to Happy Days. He told The Believer in 2017, it was great what the band accomplished, but it was never really fun to do. A lot of people try to rewrite history about how it all ended, but the truth was there was nothing weirder than when you're in a band and it finally gets big and you're playing sold out arenas and you're selling millions of records and you dread being a part of it all. It wasn't some master plan to go solo. I was just like, I'd rather do my own thing, be happy, and have it be 10 times less popular. With White Zombie inactive, Rob wasted no time launching his solo career. He signed with Geffen Records as a solo artist and began work on what would become Hellbilly Deluxe, 13 Tales of Cadaverous Cavorting Inside the Spook Show International. Rob assembled a new band for recording, but he wasn't looking to industry heavyweights to help out with the record. Instead, they were members of Rob's family tree, including his distant cousin, bassist Rob Blasco Nicholson, who played in various outfits including Drown and Metal Pioneers Prong. Blasco thought by this point his career probably peaked, and at the time he was working at a used clothing store during the day and a bar at night. Blasco met Rob for a quick interview at the diner to ensure the bassist was okay with simply being a hired hand. Blasco told Kerrang, we literally hopped right in the car, went to the studio, we got in front of a producer and he said, we've been working on this track, and it was Dragula. He said, it's in the key of F sharp, here's the bass, go. Meanwhile, guitarist Mike Riggs, according to Rolling Stone, was hunting squirrels on a 55-acre family compound in Arkansas and working at a boat factory. Rob's band was also rounded out by a familiar face, ex-White Zombie drummer John Tempesta. Rob initially worked with Nine Inch Nails member Charlie Clouser to produce the album, and Clouser and Zombie had collaborated on White Zombie's final record, Astral Creep 2000, and the collaboration proved to be crucial in shaping the sound of the album, utilizing more electronic elements as well as movie samples with metal riffs. Rob remarked to author John Wiederhorn, just to do guitar, bass, and drums forever would get to be such a drag, and with White Zombie, bringing that electronic stuff into the band was not something everybody else wanted to do. Rob remarked in various interviews that he wanted his solo project to be something familiar like White Zombie but taken to a whole other level. But soon enough, Charlie Clouser got tied up with other projects and suggested that Rob work with Scott Humphrey. The only song Clouser ended up producing and even co-wrote was the track Super Beast. And Clouser even co-wrote The Great American Nightmare. Scott Humphrey had previously worked with acts including Metallica and the Melvins. It was the beginning of Zombie and Humphrey's relationship that saw them collaborate on all of his records through 2007 and on Rob's 2003 film debut, House of a Thousand Corpses. The recording of the album soon moved to the Chop Shop, a studio on Humphrey's Hollywood Hills property. Rob commented that the process was a lot less stressful than a traditional studio, not having to watch the clock to think about how much the studio was costing. Also staying at the house during this time was Motley Crue drummer Tommy Lee, who was standing trial for abusing his then-wife Pamela Anderson. He actually ended up playing drums on 2 songs on the album, including the Ballad of Resurrection Joe and Rosa Whore and Meet the Creeper. Zombie recalled to the St. Louis Dispatch, it was pretty strange because his life was a mess. He played the song and basically went to jail. Despite coming up with a sound comparable to White Zombie, Rob noted that the process of making his first solo record was different, remarking, a band falls into patterns and can become stagnant. Playing with new people was exciting. The album contained more than a dozen tracks, which also included instrumental interludes meshed with metal riffs and electronic sounds and movie samples. Riggs remarked about the sound the band was trying to achieve, saying, "So we tried to get a cleaner tones but still heavy. We used drop beat tunings, so it wasn't exactly like the White Zombie tone. That was really distorted, super no mid-range Metal Gear. This one, we put it straight into the amp and that was it. It was really rhythmic and it had a lot of kick." Despite feeling happy with the end product, Rob wasn't so confident that his new venture was going to be successful. He remarked, "The climate for putting out a solo record was horrible because heavy music was at its most dead point. Other people like Jerry Cantrell and Scott Weiland put out solo records, and people didn't seem to really care. If it ever looked like there was a classic bad move on my part, this was it, but it all worked out great." He was referring to Jerry Cantrell's first solo record, Boggy Depot, and Scott Weiland's 12 Bar Blues. Both of their respective bands, Alice in Chains and Stone Temple Pilots, were on a break due to drug issues. In doing interviews for Hellbilly Deluxe, Rob revealed that he was offered the chance to write and direct the third iteration of The Crow, but like so many things in Hollywood, it never materialized. He spent 2 years on the project and lost a lot of money on it, with him remarking to Rolling Stone, "Nobody knew what they wanted, all they wanted was a hit, and nobody knows what a hit is. It's usually the exact movie that nobody wants to make." Rob in interviews also came across as kind of thrifty. One interview stated, "He's the Jack Benny of heavy metal. He rents. If cheese costs an extra 30 cents on his sandwich, he skips the cheese. My accountant keeps saying, 'Could you please spend some money? Last week I bought $40 boots. Why do I need $800 ones?' he asks." Rob's decision to go solo after White Zombie and release Hellbilly Deluxe was partially made to recoup his losses on The Crow. At least that's what his 1999 Rolling Stone piece indicated. Zombie had also established his own label through Geffen, which also allowed him to sign his own acts. Released on August 25th, 1998, Hellbilly Deluxe peaked at number 5 on the Billboard chart, selling an estimated 121,000 copies. During its first week of release, the highest of Zombie's career up until this point. Within 6 weeks, the album went gold, and 3 months later, it went platinum, eventually going triple platinum. The lead single, Dragula, became Zombie's most recognizable track as a solo artist, and commercially successful. It peaked at number 6 on the mainstream rock tracks chart, number 27 on the alternative airplay chart, and went to number 1 in Canada, while hitting number 44 on the UK charts. The song was based off the drag racer Dragula from the Munsters. Rob told Billboard, "It was a classic show with great comic characters. Strangely enough, Dragula was one of the last songs finished for the record. It fell together really fast and worked." The audio clip Superstition, Fear, and Jealousy heard at the beginning of the song is a sample of dialogue from the 1960 horror film The City of Dead, also known as Horror Hotel, and is spoken by Christopher Lee. Christopher Lee was also famously a metalhead who recorded metal albums and received a Metal Hammer Golden God Award. Dragula was once again in the news when an 82-year-old contestant named John Hetlinger performed the song on a July 2016 episode of America's Got Talent. He had previously performed Drowning Pool's song Bodies, which went viral. The second single, Living Dead Girl, was a modest hit, peaking at number 22 on the alternative airplay chart. The final single, Super Beast, peaked at number 26 on the mainstream rock tracks chart. Rob Zombie soon hit the road with Monster Magnet and Fear Factory for part of the promotion for the album. He also revealed that his look for the tour was industrial hell meets Frankenstein. He even worked with some of the same Hollywood folks who did the makeup for movies like Men in Black and Batman, with Rolling Stone remarking how Rob spent nearly $100,000 designing and constructing the stage, and given how expensive the nature of his concerts were, despite the sold-out dates, he was likely to not even break even. There was also some controversy in the summer of 1998 when Rob dropped out of the Korn Family Values Tour. Rumors swirled about Rob's ego, while another claimed the promoters thought they were booking White Zombie for the tour. Rob claimed his stage setup was too impractical to tour with the Family Values Tour. However, he did end up touring with Korn the following year in 1999. During press for his first solo record, White Zombie, of course, came up a lot. And Rob offered the following take, telling author John Wiederhorn, "I don't want to slag White Zombie, I just think the new band plays better and sounds better. Their attitude and excitement are so cool. White Zombie always seem like fragmented people all over the place. This really seems like a group of friends making music. It's a feeling I've never had before. I would see it with other bands, but I've never experienced it until I did Hellbilly Deluxe." Critical reception to the album was generally positive, with many reviewers praising Rob's ability to evolve his sound while maintaining the core elements that had made White Zombie successful. But with the dark imagery associated with Rob, the frontman was accused of Satan worshipping and animal sacrifice, something the frontman laughed off, claiming critics hadn't obviously heard the music. But according to Kerrang! Magazine, Walmart initially refused to sell the album until the skulls and pentagrams were removed from the cover. In 1999, Super Beast scored a Grammy nomination for Best Hard Rock Performance, but lost in the category to Metallica's cover of Thin Lizzy's Whiskey in the Jar. A 7-time nominee, Rob has yet to win one. So how did his ex-bandmates feel about Rob's decision to go solo and his future career aspirations? While the assault remarked in It All Came From New York City, "I knew it was over, but it was a surprise to us when Rob's solo record came out immediately after the phone call. Obviously, he had been working on other plans." Rob was surprised his ex-bandmates had an issue with him going solo, remarking, "By that point, I seriously figured that everyone thought it was over. It seemed to me that the call was just a technicality." Hellbilly Deluxe established Rob Zombie as a solo force to be reckoned with in the world of metal. The album's success allowed him to embark on high-profile tours and festival appearances, further growing his fan base. The album's blend of metal, industrial, and electronic elements, along with its horror movie aesthetics, became Rob's signature sound. He would continue to refine this formula on subsequent albums, but many fans and critics consider Hellbilly Deluxe to be his definitive work. Beyond its musical impact, Hellbilly Deluxe also served as an important launching pad for his career as a filmmaker. The music videos he directed for the album's singles showcased his visual style and storytelling abilities, paving the way for his eventual transition into feature film directing. In November of 2005, Geffen Records released a deluxe edition of Hellbilly Deluxe, which included a DVD with zombie-directed music videos of all the songs on the album. That does it for today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. I'll see you again in Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.